Hi, you all. This is John Gallagher. I am here to tell you today about my job search experience. Okay, I want to take you through how I applied to a number of places, how they responded, how some of the interviews went, and finally how I was offered a job and how I've accepted it now. Okay, so to start, I used Indeed for most, if not all, of my applications, unless Indeed had to redirect me to the company site. Okay, and I did that because it's just easier to get in more applications. Okay, so their system's kind of easy. Usually when you apply to a company site, you have to create an account, and that just takes a long time. So I preferred to use Indeed to apply to places. I probably applied to somewhere between 100 and 200 places. A day I'd apply to 20 to 30 places and I'd hear back from one or two. Okay, so yeah, that was pretty stressful. But as an entry level developer, that's something you just, I guess, have to accept, that people are tend to be looking for more experienced developers. Okay, so say apply to about 150 places and I got about a 5% response. I did also have a portfolio, so I created a portfolio. I think that really helped. A lot of people that interviewed me and spoke to me on the phone screening said they saw my portfolio and this YouTube channel and they appreciated it. It helped at least push me through some of the initial screenings. So I definitely suggest a portfolio. That definitely helped. I also have a degree, so I finished a cybersecurity and software development degree. I'm not sure to what degree that helped or didn't help. Obviously, it doesn't hurt. Some of the places did require a degree, and it seemed like it helped. Other places didn't care and said, as long as you can show your experience, that's fine. I'm glad I did my degree. It helped push me past certain barriers in learning. But this video isn't about how much I like my degree. It's about how this job experience went. So, degree, I say it helped. But honestly, if you have a really great portfolio, I could see that overcoming any sort of paper that says you have a degree. Okay. In terms of career experience, I've been a teacher and been in the education industry for the last 6 years. So, again, I'm an entry level developer. And that was brought up in a few of my interviews as to why I left teaching, and I found ways to integrate that into my answers. Okay, so this is kind of the initial part, just to get you a clue into where I'm at and how I started my job search. Now let's get to the actual some of the actual interviews. I want to mention 4 of them. Okay, so for my first interview, so the step 1 was I got an email from this particular company that I had applied to, and they wanted to see a code sample. And so I sent them 2 or 3 samples of my code. They liked it, so I got pushed to the next step, which was an interview. They gave me the option of remote or in person. I chose in person. And so I got there, and they asked me typical interview questions. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And there was no coding challenge. So no coding challenge. Asked me typical questions that you'd find on most interviews. And I did actually acquire this job. This was a part-time position. So I've been working for this place. And I don't want to name any names or anything like that, just because this is the internet and everything's public. So if you want to find out where I work, you can look at my profile at GallagherCareer.com. Okay, so that was a remote position, and it was part-time, so it was kind of like a step into the industry. It didn't pay a lot, still didn't pay a lot, but it got me experience, so that 2 months later, such as closer to now, I could say I've been working with other people on code for money officially. Okay, so let's go over the next interview. So that's that. I actually, I still kind of hold that job, and I just work that remote part time. So that's great. My second interview with this second company, The first step was a phone screen, and this is kind of common to all of them. Most of them did some sort of an email screen or a phone screen first. And so they gave me a phone screening. I passed the phone screening, and the second step was an online interview. Okay, so I got set up in an online meeting with about 5 or 6 people. I had my mic, my webcam, everything. It was pretty serious, and honestly, I was a little nervous because I haven't done any online interviews. And so they had your typical interview questions. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where do you want to be in 10 years, etc., etc. And they also had a critical thinking test. So this was a very high level question, something you'd see on like the last portion of the SAT math portion. Like it was pretty difficult, and if you didn't have a strong background in mathematics, you weren't going to pass it. So it had a word problem, and this company had this issue, and so you had to kind of solve this issue. And I walked them through how I would solve it, what parts of the question I focused on, and the person who presented it, the technical interviewer, said that he didn't, I think only one person had passed this portion, and that he really used it almost as a personality test to see how I cope with the stress, as well as some of my problem solving ability. So I verbalized how I would go about solving the problem. Not a true code challenge though, okay? So there's no HTML, there's no CSS, no JavaScript, no PHP, no Python, no backend, no front end. There's no technical coding going on in this interview either, okay? Except for this problem solving. So with that, that I ended up kind of forestalling that whether or not I got the job on that position. So that's still up in the air actually. So we'll see where that job takes me. But as of the moment, no. That's so no, I wasn't experienced enough for this particular position. But the company said that they might have other positions available in the future. Okay, so the third one. Okay, so the third interview or company that I interviewed with. Of course, step 1, we had a phone screening. Step 2, now this was interesting. They had something called the CCAT, which is essentially an IQ test, followed by a personality test, followed by a basic tech skills test. So the IQ test had reading comprehension questions on it, and it had fairly basic math questions on it. And then it had your classic recognize the pattern questions on it. So, and then it had a personality test where it was, are you outgoing, neutral, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, okay? And then finally it was like a basic skills test where you had to open up a document and send an email, something like that. And I actually passed that. So the step 1, I passed the phone screening. Step 2, passed the CCAT. And then step 3 was the actual in-person interview. So I got there, I got to the business, in-person interview. They, again, asked typical questions. So where do you want to be in the future? What are your strengths and weaknesses? How did you overcome a challenge? How do you deal with coworker conflicts, etc.? Right? There was no code challenge. So again, there's no code challenge that I experienced. They didn't have me get up to a computer and type in a test. There was no code that I had to show. Now they did look at my portfolio, so that could have been something that they took into account in terms of whether or not they challenged me for code. They asked me a few technical questions about callbacks and test-driven development and verbal responses to questions, essentially. Okay, and so I actually did not receive. I was rejected for that position. I'm assuming it's because I wasn't experienced enough, but so did not make that that job. Okay, passed the first part, passed the second part, but for some reason in the third part I did not receive the job. Okay. And so my fourth one, and this is the job that I've actually received an offer from, and I'm actually accepting it. So in this one, so woohoo, that, this is the one that I struck out on, that I'm proud of. And so step one was a phone interview. They asked me a number of your typical questions. Mostly in the phone, in that phone screening process, they try to figure out if are you close enough for the job? Do you have the basic requirements? If it says a Python developer, do you know Python? Just say yes, right? If are you close enough to work there, etc. So they're not getting into too many technical questions or coding challenges. So I passed the phone interview. For step two, it was the in-person interview, and there was no code challenge, and there were typical questions. So, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in a few years? Name a challenge that you've overcome. Things like that. So I actually, I heard back from them after that, about 2 days after that point, and I accepted that position. It is in the DC region, okay, and it pays somewhere between 60 and 70K. So as an entry-level developer in the DC region, I think that's pretty good. So I definitely accepted that. And so that starts in about 4 weeks. So I have some time to wait. I have some time to kill. So I figured I'd make some videos on my job results and job search program, or just my job results. So that's 4, I guess, multi-step interviews that I experienced. I had a number of phone screenings that just didn't lead anywhere. It felt like, we're on Tinder and you're just getting ghosted left and right. Okay, so someone will call you, they say, HR will get back to you, blah, 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 and they never do, right? So I must have had 10, at least around 10 companies that called or emailed, and then never got back to me. So sometimes it'd just be an email, and they'd be like, answer these questions. I'd answer them. They never get back to me. Or they'd call, they'd do a phone screening. We'll get back to you. Never got back to me. So you get screened out a lot, which is fine. But, I guess the most surprising thing about the entire process was that I was never challenged with any code. There was no whiteboard test. There was, again, in the first one that's remote and part-time, they wanted to see pieces of my code, but they probably could have looked at my portfolio for that too. So where to go from here? So, I'm just going to keep on learning, and I take classes on Udemy. I always suggest people, so I did the portfolio, I did the degree, but honestly, my degree was online. Okay, so I feel like when you do an online degree, it's very much self-taught. Okay, so I feel like most of the things I learned were self-taught. The college helped me set goals, and I hate getting anything less than an A or B, so it motivated me to learn the material because I wanted to pass the class. That was really great for me. But yeah, I will say that Udemy has been amazing in terms of learning a number of different things. Either Colt Steel. I mean, maybe I'll go over another video showing my Udemy courses, but I have somewhere around 20 or 30 Udemy courses that I use. So I guess I'll take this position, and I'll keep on building up my skills, and hopefully I can move up within this company. I don't really want to name it until it's a surefire thing. I'm 2 weeks into the job, or maybe 2 months into the job, and I understand everything. But just goes to show that if you work hard and you try hard and you're competent and you study, that that your efforts are worthwhile, and that this industry in software development is hiring. There are jobs, and it doesn't matter if you're entry level. Someone in one of these cities, one company is looking for a junior dev. Okay. So thank you all. That was my experience. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments. Talk to you later.